Hello, and welcome to Women Finding Clarity. I'm your host, Pascal Cook Fernandez. Being present is a powerful concept that emphasizes mindfulness and awareness in the current moment. It means fully engaging with what is happening around you and within you rather than letting your mind wander to the past or to the future. When we are present, we can experience life more fully. We connect with others on a deeper level, and we manage our emotions by responding and not reacting. So, why is this important? First, it can help you reduce stress and anxiety. If you're like so many of the women that I speak with, you are juggling lots of responsibilities, things like your work, your family, maybe you're a caregiver. This constant multitasking, the juggling, can lead to burnout. Raise your hand, right? If you have ever felt just completely burned out, like you are out of capacity. Being more present or having more mindfulness allows you to focus on what is most important in each moment. And it's a reminder of the importance of prioritizing self care. Staying present can also help you create deeper connections in your life. When you are present in conversations or activities with other people and you show up authentically, you are building stronger and more meaningful relationships. And let's face it, you can physically feel the energetic difference between someone who is fully present in a conversation versus someone who you're trying to talk to, but they keep looking at their phone. And if you'd rather have a more tangible example of the importance of being present, it can actually boost your productivity and your focus. Being present helps you focus on the task at hand, which can also improve performance and efficiency, making it easier to accomplish your goals without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling the edge of that burnout. But one of the reasons you listen to this podcast is for the personal transformations. So let's go there. In moments of presence, you become more attuned to your own desires and what you need by leaning into your inner wisdom. If you are on a journey of transformation or personal growth, this awareness is critical for aligning with your true self, yourself with a capital S, and manifesting the life that you want to live. Cultivating presence in all areas of your life is a practice that brings with it more peace, more clarity, and more empowerment. Would you like to explore how being present can be integrated into your life? Here's a little sales pitch I'm just going to throw in. Visit www.womenfindingclarity.com or just click on the link in show notes to schedule a clarity coaching session with me. I can't wait to support you on your journey of becoming more mindful, of finding more peace, clarity, and becoming more empowered in your day-to-day life. My friend Sjeanne Cawdry is a master of being present, and I think you can learn so much from our conversation, the one that you're about to hear. And be sure to notice what happens at the beginning of our session when I myself was not present. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about Sjeanne. Sjeanne Cawdry, CEO of the Center of Liberation, is a visionary leader transforming individuals, organizations, and society. With a passion for empowering change makers, she helps leaders gain clarity on their purpose and unleash their potential to revolutionize business. A former top ranking athlete turned entrepreneur and corporate leader, Sjeanne brings unique strategies to dissolve limitations and manifest extraordinary realities. She has worked with spiritual masters, elite athletes, and high level executives, blending science and spirituality to create transformative results. The Center of Liberation supports visionary leaders and entrepreneurs to scale their businesses, grow wealth, and expand their global impact, aligning with their higher purpose and message. Yes, she's business, but she's also personal transformation. So without further ado, please help me welcome Sjeanne Cawdry. Sjeanne, welcome to Women Finding Clarity.
Pascal, so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So great to be here with you. And funny thing, before we hit record, I'm total transparency going to share that for some reason in my mind, I thought we were just having a catch up call. So I'm like, I'll just come in my pajamas. I know Sjeanne. And then I'm like, oh my God, she's so dressed up. Oh my gosh, we're having a podcast interview today. Yeah, clearly my mind is in slow motion today. So thank you for your patience, Sjeanne.
This is the way life rolls: flexibility, adaptability, and pretty much be in the unknown and just go with it.
It's so true. Anybody who knows me right now is shaking their head and being like, of course that happened.
Yeah, of course it happened. Well, it was lovely to see you in your PJs. I was going, this is such an interesting outfit for a podcast. But I really like the naturalness, you know.
You are fabulous. You're fabulous. So I want to jump right in.
Yeah.
The rise of the modern day mystic.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. What
So,
does that mean to you?
Pascal, we are in the most incredible transition in the history of mankind. I think certainly in this lifetime that I'm alive and witnessing. And so the rise of the modern day mystic really stems from the fact that we are coming to the end of an era. I think many of us can feel it, right? Many of us are seeing the crisis, the chaos. I don't have to repeat it, but it certainly is incredibly evident in terms of the birth of a new era. But we're not in that. We're in that phase where we're not quite we're in the transition, because we're not at the end of the one era, and we're not quite into the new era. And so typically that means that when we're in these big transitions, we know from our own personal experience that when we are in a big transition, things around us really fall apart. And so we're really seeing things falling apart at the moment on a global scale, the structures, the systems, as people want more sovereignty. And so let me tie that back then to the rise of the modern day mystic. Spiritually orientated visionaries, change makers, women and men, leaders, anyone with a deep spiritual practice or spiritual orientation or consciousness level, where you have been prepared for this time. Everything in this lifetime and everything in previous lifetimes have prepared us very specifically to lead across this transition. And so the rise of the modern day mystic is really an ordinary human being, you, me, the various people that we are seeing on a daily basis, whether that be clients or whether that be in the different containers we're involved in, or businesswomen, business people, businessmen, the people that we are interacting with. We are the modern day mystics. A modern day mystic is very much a person who is here to bring about impact, to bring about change, to bring about that next level of consciousness, to bring about that new earth, that new order, and to lead through it. And so it is someone who is successful or been successful to a certain extent. It is a person who is doing the extraordinary, even though they themselves don't see just how extraordinary they are. And importantly, their life has set them up. They're powerful. We're all powerful. But specifically, a modern day mystic is someone who seen and experienced their power. And I'm talking about the expression of their power through doing good or leading or difficult life circumstances, and really experiencing difficult life circumstances from a young age. Again, still overcoming them and doing well in life and being successful and achieving success and having an impact. Yet now they're at a point in their lives where they've been called forward to something more. They've been asked. I'd call it the ask is here. And so I know that I'm in conversation with many people who can feel that they've just been asked for the next, but it's not quite clear on the next. It's not quite clear what their next step is, or what they've been called forward more into. But the rise of the modern day mystic is now around very much stepping up stepping out, getting visible, and expressing voice, because it's time to step in and lead to the new era, into that new era. And so that is my interpretation of the rise of the modern day mystic. It's not about, often we think mystics are, and we have an image of mystics being in mountains or being in these ashrams or being in these environments or churches and etc., either praying or meditating for hours all day, and that's their work. That's not the case. Modern day mystics are, you're on the ground, you're in amongst the people, you're asked to lead, you've been asked to lead, you are now being called forward in a very soul-led and a soulful way by the divine, by life, to move forward and take people along the journey. So it's on the ground, you're hustling and bustling, you yourself are doing a lot of growth, and you're digging deep, and you're doing the work. And now it is time to be seen, as I said, to be visible, to be speaking, and to be up and out. It's almost like a second coming out as such.
Yes, it's like a spiritual awakening. I feel this rumbling inside of me. I'm feeling pulled. I feel something inside of me is being pulled forward. And it's really digging into that, right? And I think as well as I know, it's not always sunshine and unicorns and rainbows.
No,
It's laughter and tears and sometimes snotty crying and sometimes elation, right? The awakening. I mean, I feel, and you can tell me how you feel, I feel that we go through many spiritual awakenings just in this lifetime.
absolutely. Everything, like I say, I think everything is the preparation phase. So you got to up level, but you got to rumble through what needs to be dissolved, what needs to be crumbled, what needs to be let go of. So you got to kind of rumble through that phase. I describe it as, if you can imagine, you're living in a building, or the opportunity to live in a block of, we call them flats in South Africa, the condos, let's call it in America. And so you got this block of condos, and on the ground floor you've got a certain view. When you're in the room or in the particular apartment, you'll have a certain view of things. You'll have a certain, typically when you look out the window, you're going to see the foot traffic or cars are parked, and you can see the lights, and that's the view you get. And then the next level of awakening, if you had to liken it to going up in the condo building, is that, oh, cool, now you've got more money, or you've got more resources to be able to get a bigger apartment in the condo. And so you can go up a few levels. And when you get to the next level and you've packed your things up and you're in the next level, you get a different view. So now when you're looking out your window, you get to see a different perspective. You get to see a higher perspective. You see things that you wouldn't have typically seen on the first floor, right? But you got to pack up your home. You got to put everything. You got to throw some things out. Some things are coming. Some things are staying for you to go to the next level. Or you need new furniture, and when you get there, some things don't fit, so they can't come. So you got to throw those out. And then you rearrange your condo so that you can now enjoy the space that you've created. And then the next awakening comes where you're ready for the next. You're ready for more, because now you're at a different level. And each time you move up in the condo, you get a different view of things. But some things stay and some things have to go. And so I kind of describe it as those are the awakenings. I think what's particularly different about this particular period, that it's not the traditional awakening, is because we're called forward and to heal, the call forward. And I make a distinction between purpose and calling. So purpose is almost like what you anchor into. Purpose is, you can be in purpose for different reasons in a particular time in your life. And if you can just anchor into the core stability of your purpose, that's always going to be pretty consistent through your life, but it might be expressed due to circumstances slightly differently. But a calling is your true nature, and your calling is what you're called forward now to practically express, experience, exert, assert, take a stand for. Let's call it take a stand for. It's the healing. But in that, as I say, it's the healing of the core wound that you've taken on for the collective. So I feel like what I'm seeing with the clients that I work with, and just in my own experience, and I can see in my own interpretation, it's happening to many people. Up until now, we've been wounded, and then we've healed those wounds personally, and now the collective core wound to be healed. So there's an intensification that's happening as we have to move through the calling. That really is, and when you're healing something for the collective, it's pretty intense. So I feel like that's probably the distinction at the moment that most people are feeling as they come into more of the expression of their true natures, and then being asked to come into taking initiative, taking a stand for having a voice in order to move humanity forward.
Wow. I just had to take a breath there because I don't think I've ever heard someone explain that with such clarity. And, I do feel like our purpose can change or evolve as we grow and learn and all the things. When I think I always knew my purpose was to be a mom, right? And so for me, I'm like, that was my purpose. That's where I put my all and my everything. And still to this day, like I think that will always be my purpose is to be a mom, the best I can be to these three amazing human beings, to teach them and to help them sculpt their own lives in such a way that they're leading with kindness, that they're leading with love and compassion. And at the same time, I do feel that calling, like you're talking about, to I'm still in that purpose. And it's almost like 1 and 1A, right? It's almost like it's this little piece that breaks off and is like, that's the calling that's coming out of the purpose.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
it's an action orientated initiative. It's your true nature being expressed into society or into the communities that you serve. So if I'm listening to you, immediately what comes up for me is that nurturer, not just to family, but nurturer. And I love the molding and the crafting and but that's not just, that would be your true nature that is extended not just to your family members, but into the people that you serve as well. Um, the thing is, when it's family, it's a little, I don't want it's not as easy because kids push back, and obviously they go through their own sort of evolution and independence process, etc. But there's just so many more complexities when it's when you're asked and you're called forward to into societies or into, let's say, organizations or into communities and people that you don't know. So that's where we kind of get triggered into, can I express my true calling in the context of others? And so, yeah, so it's a subtle distinction. And for me, like I say, I think purpose is something that's more, you can always fall back into it. The expression can be expressed into different contexts, but the calling is something where you've got to take a stand for something. And you stand in the authority then of who you are and your true nature. And I think that's the big thing, because, with the modern day mystic, because of our experiences of being, let's say, in intimate situations where our power was challenged, I don't want to say we lost it, because we never lose our power. We ourselves would have made choices due to effectively either wanting to belong or thinking that, we wouldn't be okay in the future. We put around all these defense mechanism coping strategies and armored up as such, right? And now the ask is like, can you take down that armor in a more deliberate way? Because most of us have always been on a journey to call back our power. If you think about it, we have these experiences in intimate relationships or intimate circumstances, whether that's on the playground at school or with mom and dad or our sisters or in loving relationships, partnerships, doesn't really matter. But we get wounded in relationship. And so now, as we are asked and called forward to take off the armor around our true nature and really get vulnerable and show all of who we are, and then take a stand for something in our true nature. Or if you think back to your potentially your life experience, when you took a stand for your true nature, somewhere in your past, it was met with quite significant abandonment, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, one of those kind of elements. And that's where we took on like the core wound. In fact, we're born with the core wound, but we just get to experience it at those points in time specifically. And so the ask now is, can you take a stand again for something, standing in the true nature of who you are, but it's got to be visible, it's got to be out in society. and be the expression of the essence of who you are.
So beautiful. And so that leads me to, how do you bring that into business, into corporate, into that world that has historically, in our lifetime and in the generation before us, their lifetime even, has been very structured, black and white. This is the way you do it. These are the 5 steps, and that's it.
Absolutely. Feel like, I mean, that's a big question. It's got lots of different answers, and it's like an octopus that I could go in various directions and tentacles.
Yeah.
So, but I think for the purposes of this conversation, let's have a look from this perspective. I work immensely with merging the idea of the metaphysical world energetics with business strategy and money strategy, right? The profitability blueprint is what I specialize in. And profitability looks at, we can call it your power, but power in the context of your energy and frequency, and the power that is our birthright, the power of who we are, the power of our energetic power. We are a fingerprint of God. We are from source. We are of source. We are source. And therefore, by virtue of that, we are co-creators of our life. And so that's the power that we can tap into. The profitability blueprint is obviously around profitability, money, wealth specifically. Then you can look at planet. So planet is, what are you here to serve, the bigger purpose. And then the final P in the profitability blueprint is then all around purpose and anchoring into purpose, and purpose-led impact is what I call it. So when you blend those 4 elements of it, now when you extend that into the broader society, right? We are conditioned and programmed very much into operating from a place of scarcity, from a place of suffering and or struggle, and from a place of inadequacy. Most of us feel in some way, shape, or form inadequate, self-doubt, look at our colleagues who's a doctor, but I might just be, feel like I'm just sitting in the coaching space or the mentoring space, or I look at CEOs, I'm an entrepreneur, etc. And so there's this constant compare and contrast. And so we're programmed into fear. And when we're in fear, we don't trust life. We don't trust the divine. We don't trust those around us who hasn't been exposed to betrayal. And so when we don't trust ourselves, life, or trust the divine, we build up, as I mentioned it earlier, these mechanisms to protect ourselves. And so we develop these strategies to provide for myself and for my family, but it's all from the primal brain, strategies for me to belong, and then strategies for me to keep safe. But they're all coming from a fear-based energy perspective. They're not coming from a place of I'm whole and complete and can trust my environment and where I'm going to be okay and I'm always going to be looked after. And so organizations, if you think about it, organizations are filled with people who are fear-based with these strategies and are therefore in the survival pattern. And when you put that into the collective, what you've got is a collective system that is operating and influencing, and that's the predominant energy system from an energy perspective that will then prevail, which says I'm not enough. And so the system says I'm not enough, I don't have enough, we only have a little bit, and there's not enough in the future. And I'm going to just digress a moment. I come from this corporate space, corporate and investment banking. In fact, spent 13 years in that environment, and I was always deeply, deeply fascinated, and I can attest this is true in most organizations because I was a consultant before that. And I'd sit at these executive tables and see the number of noughts on the balance sheet or on the income statement, billions of dollars profit before tax, right? Billions. Yet the conversation at every single month at the exco meeting was always around, we're facing headwinds. We need to have the conversation with our people that their bonuses aren't going to be the same because we're facing headwinds and there's so much uncertainty and there's not enough. And which are the headcount that we need to, because we've got to look at cost cutting and whatever. And it always fascinated me that in one moment, but literally in one moment, we were like, well done, this is great, look at the numbers. And in the very next sentence, we'd go into the scarcity, into the not sufficient, into the not enough, into fear. Now, I would say to the leaders, if it's happening at that level, there needs to be a real hard look at your own money stories. But when it's been led there, the trauma that's been then passed out because we are energy beings and we continue to emit this, if we're carrying that energy in what we call our aura, most people will be familiar with that. You're carrying all this information in your aura. The messaging that goes out to your people at the town halls or the fireside chats is, well done, guys. This is what we've achieved for the month or for the year. But da 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 da. So the programming that comes through, and so when you've got that as a systemic messaging in your organization, let's look at language, because if you just listen to the language of your leaders, listen to the language and the discourse on the ground, that will tell you everything just about how much fear and how much of the program that people are bought into. Yet you're sitting with a balance sheet of millions. Interesting. So I want to circle back to your question now. How do we start shifting the systemic collective cultures within organizations or small businesses? It's going to start with language, because that's the only common mechanism that we have in order to communicate. But actually, if you had to think about it, let's take it back to the condo example, right? What do you fill your space with? What are organizations languaging, and what are they filling their space with? And that's going to come back to the individual. If you think of yourself as an individual, what language do you use to fill your space, to fill your mind? Because that's the place you get to start to change things. And is it fundamentally true that the universe, that the divine is not an abundant universe? When you look around you everywhere, when these executives, leaders, etc., organizations just take a look around their homes, take a look around their offices, take a look at the balance sheet, have a look at all of that. Is the universe fundamentally not abundant? No. People are not abundant. And people from the top and a small are driving fearful narratives and fearful discourses to continue the discourse that there's not enough. Quite frankly, when I look at the number of, we call it swift transfers, so when you look at just EFTs, so money transferred from one bank to the other, billions, just where I was, billions, plenty of EF. There was no shortage. Look at America, they just print off more money. So I get really confused with this discourse that there's not enough, and that we're, so that's where I'd say it starts. You want to start changing it. Start, number one, dissolving the very deep discourses that exist, first of all, in ourselves, we are leaders, but in the collective leadership, executive teams, and then obviously start setting up a different discourse and a different energy in the organizations, and start really having a look at what is actually true. Because the universe does not even understand money. The universe doesn't understand. It doesn't even, the universe, God, source, divine, whatever you want to talk about, doesn't even know the difference between a dollar and, we were in South Africa, ZAR or pound or euro. These are all man-made constructs. It's the man-made constructs around, like, you're not going to be enough. There's not enough, So I don't know if that answered your question. Kind of got into a bit of a ramble there.
I think that answered my question and my next 3 or 4 questions, because maybe you feel like it was a ramble, but I felt like you came full circle and tied it all together so beautifully. And it is that as human beings, I know we were not created to lean toward the negative, and yet our brains do that. And I know that it's because it's a protection mechanism, right? It's be careful when you go out of the cave because the lion might attack you. But there aren't necessarily lions anymore. There are other things, but they're not lions. So part of that too, I feel like, is the realization that the lion isn't going to attack you, and da, 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 da. So how can we change our language? We've evolved so much from that time, but our languaging really hasn't caught up. Everything that you said was so beautifully said. And so how do you even begin to change that language, right? It almost feels grassroots that you have to start with one person and, facilitate change in one person. And then that person is able to facilitate change in 2 people. And then it spreads out from there. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. And that's why I say it's like working with small groups of people, leadership teams, first of all, to really challenge the discourse that is existing, and for leaders to become absolutely tuned into. For me, the next I will speak about it on my own my own social media handles and etc. I talk around being a creator of your reality is a skill of the future that no one is talking around. And for leaders to really start understanding, the next language that they have to understand is the language of energy and frequency. They simply cannot be operating from the paradigm of just the practical and trying to solve things from the same level of mind as what they're solving for now. They have to open up into the unpredictable. And just to come back to, before I come into like dealing with groups of people and whatever, but to come back to the brain, is that the leadership brains is like, there's not judgment or blame, because as human beings in our own individual capacity, leaders are no different. They're operating from the defense and coping strategies from their own, upbringings, from their own programming. But the deep work really has to be done. And so to release those. And so the brain is operating and trying to predict certainty. It's trying to predict. That's one of the coping strategies it does. It looks to the future and it wants things to stay the same so it can predict. And typically it's going to predict worst case scenarios. So that's why you're hearing executive teams and leadership teams sitting at a table, and even though they're seeing the big numbers in terms of what's sitting on the balance sheet or income or etc., and sometimes yes, it is smaller, but that's okay, immediately their brain is going into, but it's not going to last, there's going to be something wrong, it's going to be taken away, there's only a little bit, we're in difficult times, so therefore let me get the predictable and let me set these targets and let me plan for worst case scenario. Okay, but they're not having the conversation to say, if I go into what's the possibility, because really I'm sitting here, I don't know what questions you're going to ask.
Right.
You don't know what I'm going to say. So can you really predict the future? No, you can be in the present now and the next now. But not even our leaders are able to actually predict the future, and their brains can't predict the future. So what happens if a possibility existed in the future that everybody was going to thrive, that there would be enough for everybody, that there would be enough resources, including their families, that there would be plenty in terms of bonus? What happens if a possibility existed in the future that their clients would have so much money that actually they wanted to buy more product, more services? Is that a possibility? Did we open up that conversation of possibility? And then if I had to have conversations from that possibility, this now is immediately, we can even feel on this call, as I'm speaking around possibility, we can even feel the release of tension of like, and the brain is going, what happens if that was possible? So what happens if we gave our employees an extra 5% bonus, or an extra 5% on their monthly salary? Because we believe in the possibility, and we believe so much in the possibility that actually we're going to double our figures next year. And so we're already rewarding our employees now. Imagine what that might do in an organization and for the employees, etc. Now you're having a very different conversation. So we're just, we're operating from that brain that says, I'm expecting the worst case scenario. And so I will continue to operate from scarcity and adequacy, and I don't want to look like an idiot. And so it's imperative that organizations and leaders start to understand energy and frequency, and start to understand this language, and start to understand that fundamentally one of the secrets to creating the profitability blueprint is to really get into a different energy level, into getting into a different possibility thinking, into releasing the power of who they themselves, the true power of who they are, to really getting into that purpose-led clarity, and then starting to challenge the narratives and challenge themselves in their own money stories and their own money paradigms. And therefore, what have they created at the organizational leadership level and what is the paradigm that each one of them have contributed to creating, not just at the executive tables, but into the organization. And then that's what needs to start to be addressed, and to start cleaning out that, and to start cleaning the energy. I call it the ethos, but the energetic signature of the organization, because we are all energy, and energy and emotion is way more power than just your thought. And the universe responds to energy and frequency, not just language. So for me, it's a whole different paradigm and language that leaders need to start comprehending and start feeding into for themselves. And I can assure you, what's interesting, certainly in the leaders, many of the leaders that I'm speaking to now, and even the leaders that I was working with when I was advising and working in that space, we'd sit behind closed doors. And in fact, I wrote an MBA thesis on it, around the ethos of the energy of transformation. And that was a precursor, in fact, culture, and more important than culture. But in those one-on-one conversations, it was deeply fascinating to listen to how many, I'm talking CEOs of a massive bank, or business unit heads of a massive bank, that were talking about spiritual energy, and the majority of them that I interviewed in one-on-ones were saying how imperative it was that the whole concept of consciousness, spirituality, and energy started coming into the organizations. But this was behind a closed door, one-on-one. I certainly wasn't hearing those conversations at the leadership table. So, the language needs to shift. It starts at leadership level, and then that discourse needs to be cascaded down into the organization to start giving permission to the organization, and at the collective systemic level, the idea of possibility thinking, and to be comfortable with uncertainty, getting the brain comfortable with uncertainty, open up. And that's why I say the ability to create is a skill of the future, because it opens up the right brain. And that is different to the logical, practical mind.
And this is why I feel that people like you are so important at this time on this planet, because when you are a very buttoned up business persona, all the things, you don't want to have these conversations out in the open, right? Because you feel like people will judge you, people won't trust you, it'll affect your business. So the conversations are happening behind closed doors and not within the organization, because they need to be the great and powerful Oz, right? But you're coming in and you're saying, let's make this relatable in a way where it does normalize the conversation, where it does normalize the language. And it doesn't have to be either or. It's how can we integrate business with the energetics, with the possibility, with the manifestation? How can we bring all of that together? Because it feels to me like, and I'm a manifester. I love all of it. I love energy, everything about all of that. And, when I talk about Reiki or energy healing, I've shared on the podcast before that my dad calls it my voodoo shit. And, I've studied mediumship, and my brother, for example, thinks I'm crazy for it. Like, he's just like, there's no way. Everything is very black and white, la, 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 right? And so historically, it's been very polarized. People used to be, people who were deemed witches were burned at the stake, were stoned to death, all the things. And so this coming together, this new paradigm that we're shifting into is more, and I'm doing this with my hands because that's how it feels to me. It feels like this universe that's evolving, that's shifting and growing. And what's happening is both of those ends of the spectrum are coming together to create this new place where we can all live.
Absolutely. And it is very, it's spirituality, metaphysics, energy, whatever you want to call it, source energy, the field. It needs structure within to land. And the structure is through human beings, or through the structures that we see all around us. And so what's going to be interesting, and you talk around it, part of the rise of the modern day mystic is what we are letting go of. I don't want to say what we're healing is exactly what you're talking about. The fact that we were burnt at the stake, that we were stoned, that there was some kind of deathly implication to our witchery and to our magicianship and to our and really, that's part of part of what the big calling is, the call forward and the ask is, it's safe to be powerful. It's safe for all of us to be powerful. And how do you access your quantum powers? I call it your quantum powers. It's not even that you have to access it. It's that you harness it, cultivate it, because quite frankly, you're creating every single, your brother, your father, they just need to look around at their lives and they'll know exactly what they've created. It's not someone else. That's every thought and every emotion that they've ever had is playing out. And so, we can look at arguing this. What I love is at the moment, I'm a big Joe Dispenza advocate and fan, and I immerse in his work. Look no further than the recent documentary that is now released, Source, It's Within You. And it's filled with scientific evidence of consciousness, scientific evidence conducted at the University of California, UCLA, I think. I do sometimes get my tongue around it. That, with researchers, with scientists. I have sat at the beginning of the year at a San Diego retreat with the mechanism on my head to measure my brainwave states in studies. And so the studies are being done. Now the documentary is being released to demonstrate just how powerful we are. Evidence-based, not thumb sucking, not woo stuff, not this is your voodoo stuff. This is evidence-based with top researchers to now bring to humanity the first of its kind, evidence-based, that we are source, and we are energy bodies, and we have the capacity to heal ourselves, to change our realities, to shape our realities and shift it. And so, that is exactly, I think, part of the rise of the modern day mystic. It's not to convince anybody. What is shifting, and what I find immensely interesting, I'm a bit of a futurist at heart, so I'm constantly looking, and I'm going to digress slightly and then hopefully tie it back. We are in the midst of huge megatrends. Again, I speak no further. You're watching AI, you're watching robotics. But there are 5 megatrends, and this is a guy by the name of Gert Leonard who speaks around these megatrends, and I thoroughly enjoy listening to him and just understanding what he has to say about the future. And then I put in my interpretation, because I will tune into what does that mean now for us? What is on offer now? And how do we prepare ourselves to be able to move into this emerging future? And so 5 megatrends he talks around is, obviously we're seeing also in the health industry, significant megatrends and the use of bioengineering and various elements in the health industry. So that's a huge industry. We're seeing the megatrend, obviously, of our climate change. We're seeing the megatrend of blockchain. So that's related to Web3, cryptocurrencies, etc., Bitcoin, Ethereum. We're looking at the megatrend of AI and then robotics. And I'm going to say, now, these are what's different about, in his perspective, and which I completely agree, is historically, in previous eras, we've had one mega trend. We might have had the information technology. We might have had the Industrial Revolution. One mega trend that came through and shaped humanity, right? We have 5 converging, and we're in that convergence now. We look no further than AI and robotics to see that already AI has the IQ of genius of 195. That's now for one human being. It's just a matter of years before AI and robotics has the genius of humanity. Now, I don't say this to scare you. I say this because people cannot be sitting on the sidelines with not understanding how powerful they are, not tapping into that, not tapping into their quantum powers, because this is a skill that is going to be imperative, in my view, and I take a stand for it, you can hear, to cultivate, so that you can operate in this fundamentally converging 5 megatrends at once, converging. We've never seen it. So we can't even predict what life is looking like as we move out of it. So, and I will add on, the 6th megatrend is the rise in consciousness. And the rise in consciousness, which was accelerated due to COVID, because so many people went through loss. And many times how consciousness works is we go through loss or trauma to wake us up. That's one of the big awakenings, so that we can start to get into what's important to us, so we can start cracking open our hearts to something more powerful than just ourselves. And that was huge and continues to be huge. So now you overlay this with a rise in consciousness. and people fundamentally wanting something different. And so these worlds of the old paradigm, bless your father, bless your brother, are meeting this world of this world is changing, and it's changing super fast. And really what humanity needs to understand, and human needs to understand, is that the pace at which, if we just go back to technology, the pace at which now the technology, due to AI and robotics, is outperforming human evolution, that's what is making people scared. And it's not about being scared, it's about tapping into the power that you are now and learning how to tap that, learning about energy and frequency, so you're not caught up in this further spiral being so fearful. Because when you tap into the authenticity of and the power of who you are going to tap into the mystery. You're going to tap into the voodoo. You're going to tap into the magic and the magician to start creating and pulling in different realities and new timelines for yourself, which is absolutely possible. If we could create a timeline of AI by various people applying their knowledge and wisdom, which didn't exist before, if we can create cryptocurrency, which didn't exist before, in a whole non-traditional financial system. This is by people who have created these realities. Why are individuals who are listening to your podcast thinking they are not powerful? No, these things did not exist. Everything that has been created exists as a possibility and a potential in now, right now. Everything in the whole human existence, in previous lifetimes and lifetimes before, all of it exists in space, which we can't see, which is 99%. We can't see. We have to learn to tune into that potential and that possibility and put it into reality. And so I don't know what your question was, but that's where I went.
I don't remember what my question was either, but I just realized as you said that, I can't even imagine what my face just looked like through all of that. And if anybody's watching the replay on YouTube, they're going to rewind now and be like, what was her face? Because I found myself so entranced with what you were saying and just so feeling the possibility of it and the dynamicness of all of it. And, yeah, absolutely. Bless my dad, bless my brother, because I think it's kind of humorous myself. Like, it's not offensive to me. It just demonstrates how we're all coming to this from very different places, right? Because one person's reality, what one person went through to come to a particular mindset absolutely affects how they're going to view anything else, right? And so this is very different languaging. This is a very different way of thinking. And so it takes time, I think, to settle into that. And it's being able to come to the conversation with language that isn't witches and spells and voodoo. And it's more coming to the conversation with languaging that other people are able to actually hear. Because when they hear particular words that have been used in the past that maybe have derogatory meanings added to them or stereotypes, their brain just shuts it off and they won't listen anymore because their brain says, oh, a witch? No, I can't listen to that. That's evil. That's bad. So it's coming to the conversation with different languaging so the human brain is able to hear what's being said.
Yeah, and able to feel into, the brain is going to hear one thing. For people who resonate with a conversation like this, their souls are listening with a different ear, and their souls are going, I'm going to drink this up because I'm remembering who I am. And it's about remembering the magic of who we are, our magic. And you're absolutely right. I want to say, what's interesting is, let's look at blockchain, for example, because I spent a lot of time in that world, and I'm still deeply involved in that world of blockchain and crypto and understanding it. Let's use that as a great example of what you're saying around conversation. Is Bitcoin never existed until 12 or 13 years ago, right? That name was didn't even exist. Blockchain didn't exist. The language around blockchain didn't exist. I would be surprised if you asked your viewers who doesn't know about cryptocurrency. Now, that was 2008 or 9, so we're in 2024, so 14 or 15 years ago. I would probably say 98%, if not 100% of them have heard about it or read something, or certainly watched Bitcoin going from 0 cents to sitting at $64,000 today, which demonstrates that, and this is what I invite people into with the idea of the profitability blueprint, which is you are profitable. Can you be profitable in relationship to yourself, to your power, to your energy, to your purpose? And be profitable as the abundant mystic? Because can you come to the table and start listening to another language? Just like Bitcoin and crypto didn't have a language, now it's become probably household language at some way, shape, or form at some point. Love it or hate it, it doesn't really matter. So the invitation is, I invite people to start opening up to the language of energy, of frequency, of source, of the mystery of the universe, and starting to understand that world, just like most companies and organizations are doing research, or have got teams looking at research into blockchain, or into what is tokenization, or into carbon credits, etc. So they taught themselves that language. There's a way more, and what's interesting is actually blockchain is a mimic, is a replica of human DNA, and it holds records. Blockchain holds records of anything previously, whatever's entered into blockchain is records are held, just like our souls hold the record of all of our past lives eternally. So it's just interesting how blockchain, and it's actually Greg Braden, who has a YouTube video on blockchain and human DNA, and he shows the relevance. However, I say that just because it's interesting to see the replication of actually technology replicates the human experience and who human beings are. We just need to get really intelligent at tapping the power. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. We are here to be creators, and it's tapping into that creation. And part of that is, as I was listening to you speak earlier, I was thinking about the different energies of the different emotions of fear, right? Fear is such a low vibrational energy, but joy is way up there, all the way at the top. And so, a great place to even begin is just to surround yourself with joy. So, in thinking about, you were talking about your flat and what fits and what you have to let go of because it doesn't fit when you move up into the next level. It's keeping the things that bring you joy and letting go of the things that are the clutter, the things that don't really make sense, that don't bring you joy in your life anymore. And so it's on a very basic level in your home. But if you can think of it that way in every part of your life, who is it? Was it Marie Kondo that did the decluttering, and it's keep only what brings you joy or makes you feel joy? Yeah, taking that into every aspect of your life, including business, including corporate, and, working with your teams, because it's almost defeating, like self-defeating, when you say, look at how much money we made in this quarter. Yay, us, go team. Okay, next quarter, this is what we're going to have to do. We have to buckle down. We have to cut bonuses. It immediately sucks the joy out. So, how can we look at what we did this quarter and it was so abundant? How can we carry that abundance with us into the next quarter to manifest the same, if not more, abundance?
Absolutely. And really just keep opening up. I think one of the things organizations would do really well in doing, in some way that sort of I'm starting to design processes around, is to, like I said, heal the money goal traumas that they themselves are bringing into the collective, into the organization. But secondly, that each of us have faced. Who hasn't been scammed? Who hasn't been taken? Who hasn't been betrayed? Who hasn't lost money somewhere? Who hasn't? We've all had that experience. We spend so much time healing the trauma of personal relationships, whether you were abused or emotionally, physically, or perhaps you were raped, or in a domineering relationship. And we've all had these relationships. We've had to heal from the trauma of the relationship. The place that needs healing as well is the place of money and the money betrayal and etc. And that's also what's driving a lot of, like, there's not enough. And so you see at these tables a lot of individualism. I need to look after myself and then look after my family before I look after others. The reality is, like, when there's enough for everybody, and we can start to see that there are trillions and trillions and trillions of billions and etc. of dollars being printed every single day. Every country is printing some kind of money somewhere, that actually there's enough. And if you could just, and many organizations do, they've got a lot of great sort of initiatives in place in terms of corporate social responsibility. Leaders will fundamentally reshape the energetic signature, which is the most powerful. I call it the seed energy, is the most powerful. It's more powerful than the actions you take in terms of what you create. And I wanted to come back to the idea of that we are all creators. My personal stand on what I've seen through technology and seen through these changes is a big piece of the awakening process is for obviously the mundane through AI and blockchain and robotics and whatever, the mundane tasks that are not creative, is for humans to wake up to their power of their creativity and their ability to focus and harness their being, their energy, and then to create. I honestly believe that is one of the big asks during this time, is that we see that we are more than who we are, and we are more capable than who we are, and more capable than just doing the mundane entering, whatever on Excel spreadsheet, allowing technology to do that so that we can become more creative, so that we can enjoy the process of creativity and the process of generosity. Because if you go to the human spirit, no one that I have ever spoken to, when I ask the question, like, who are you truly, like, at your true nature of who you are and the expression of your true nature, tell me who that is, and tell me who human beings are in the expression of their true nature. I've never heard one person say to me, mean, unkind, individualistic, and selfish. Every person that I ask this question around, what is the true nature, in other words, the true spirit of the human being, comes to say loving, kind, generous, reasonable, joyful, trusting. Well, if that's the true nature of the human spirit, why don't we have more of that around our executive tables and organizations and places where people gather? Well, how might the world look differently if we were in the human spirit of our true nature and operating from that place of generosity? Interesting.
I think it could look very, very different. And I think we are starting to see that come into more of a reality. And it often sometimes can seem like its own AI reality, right? Because it's all changing so quickly. So, the mechanism of AI, the mechanism of currency, it's all changing so quickly. And I think it's easier to look at that and say, oh, I see the change. And it is to look within, or, the self, or within the community, or within the world reality of human interaction, and pinpoint the change exactly there.
Correct. And why is that? So there's two things I want to surface here, and I want to bring in. Let's go. Pull me back to the concept of the unseen, which is 99% of what we don't see, to answer that question. Yeah. Before I go there, I want to just presence the seventh trend that has now emerged that I'm busy doing research on at the moment. And in fact, I'm running my first masterclass on Thursday night to talk about this. And it comes into the Profitability Blueprint. A trend that is phenomenal and I'm so excited about. It was in the Fortune magazine article that I saw online, speaking about the biggest wealth transfer that we are ever going to see in the history of mankind is about to take place over the next decade. That wealth transfer will amount to about $30 trillion to females, women, for the first time in the history of mankind. I want every single woman, including yourself, just to percolate for a second on that alone. And what that means is that for the first time in history, the possibility for women owning more personal wealth than men over the next decade is what's possible. And what will happen is going to happen now. That's the seventh megatrend no one is talking about. It's massive. What does that mean? With money comes a transfer of power. Money and power come together. And I'm talking about power. I don't talk about power in controlling and manipulating. But the transfer of wealth and profitability, and when there's profitability across the dimensions I've spoken about, so profitability and not losing your power, so profitability of like, I'm powerful, I feel powerful, I'm in the full expression of myself, I'm profitable in terms of my bank account is profitable, I'm profitable, and that's because my business or what I'm doing or my organization is doing well, I'm purpose-led, and so I'm profitable there. And then I'm profitable from a planet because now I'm contributing to the greater. When we're in those profitability places, those are very feminine dimensions, but many of them will hold the masculine structure. So the things that you're talking about, AI, the things like even wealth is a very masculine construct. But all these left brain elements, blockchain, they're all pretty masculine constructs. But the way that women will disperse profitability and will disperse money is with the feminine, softer. We are more philanthropic. We have more generous. We are the nurturers. No disrespect to males, but you haven't birthed a child. Personally, neither have I. But I'm inherently with that nurturing energy because that we are mothers at some form, and so we are nurturers. And so the way that money and power now will start to shift over the next decade with the feminine, not to take away the masculine, but to balance out the masculine.
That's right.
Huge mega trend that I think we don't even know the implications of yet, but which I'm deeply excited about. And so I want to say and I'm going to say now to women, if you're not positioning yourself and you're not really saying, wow, did I really just hear what's happening for the first time in history? Women are going to have more wealth transfer. It's not going to just fall in your lap. What do you have to overcome? We have to overcome these inferiority. We have to overcome our own personal inadequacy. I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we have to overcome those narratives, those language discourses that were fed into the programming, so we can release that and open ourselves up into space. And let me tie this back into, I said I'd come back to the 99% space. Science has shown that matter, what we see around us, including you and I as we sit on this conversation, is only 0.01% of what we see. Matter in the 3D form, in its energetic, slowest way that it vibrates, in you and me, the table, the book that I'm looking at, is 0.01% of what I see. 99% of it of what we see is space. In other words, 99% of what we don't see exists as possibilities and potentials in space. We haven't even seen it yet. The universe comprises of 99% of the unseen. So to tie that back to, it's hard to see what the change is happening here. It's not hard to see. When you're making change in your inner world, I call it your echo chamber, your cave, your chamber of your life changes on the outside. So you will absolutely start to see the internal world, but it starts in the unseen, and that's what people struggle with. It starts with releasing the limitations, the programs, the deep-seated meta programs that people aren't even aware of, but which are coming up for release now as well. So it starts with releasing those in your inner world and excavating and cleaning out and clearing out the clutter there, replacing it with more true paradigms for your true nature of your soul. And then your echo chamber, what you practically see in the 3D world, you will absolutely see as changes. And so I kind of say, yes, you might not be able to see you changing your thought or the implications of changing that, but you will see in the practical world how your world begins to change. And that starts to change the moment you decide for yourself. The moment, for example, you decide as a woman, you're going to be a part of this 30 trillion wealth transfer journey over the next decade. The moment that you decide you're a part of that, and the moment you claim that for yourself, is the moment the universe starts to respond and starts to reorientate things in the unseen world. But we are so now orientated and so immediacy orientated that if I don't see the change right now, I give up on it. Well, the truth is the universe has got a bit of organizing to do. So if you can just stay focused on what you want, let the universe organize it in the unseen and bring it into fruition, and you behave as that person, you're going to see that manifest in your reality.
Beautiful. I want to sit here and say, preach and tell us more. And, listening to you talk about that so distinctly and with so much clarity, as you were speaking, I came up with a very simple metaphor for all of that. And I guess it's not a metaphor, but a visual for all of that, right? There was a time where I told my husband that I was like, I would love to dye my hair purple. It's always been red. It's always been, now it's mostly brown, but I grew up as a redhead, right? And he's like, do it. And I'm like, no, I'm a mom. I can't have purple hair. La, 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 la. But the thought was there, right? And then one day I made the decision, you know what? I'm going to do it. I am going to dye the front of my hair purple. So I went to the salon. I saw the change in my mind. I went to the salon. I did the thing and I had purple hair. And so when you go and you make a change, you think of it, you feel it, you finally get the courage to make the change, then you show up so differently in the world because you're showing up as your most authentic expression of self.
Beautiful.
And so everything you just said, I was like, that's exactly what happens when you want to change your hair. Like, such a simplistic thing, but I think that it's a great visual. If anybody's listening and is like, oh, that sounds so esoteric and I just can't wrap my head around it. Think about something, a change in your life like that.
Mm.
I think I want to dye my hair purple. And
Mm.
the implications of that in your life, right? You're creating a new reality because maybe you're not going to get the job that's going to hire someone with purple hair, but then maybe that job wasn't meant for you.
Mm.
Maybe
Beautiful.
you were meant to have the purple hair to get the other job because that's going to be your biggest transformation, right? And so I love how you bring in such a mindful visioning. You have such
Uh,
a mindful visioning of what's up ahead. And yeah, you truly make it all feel possible. And it
mm.
all starts with the feeling, doesn't it?
All starts with the feeling. And I'll just share with your audience. I want to share two things. I'm like menopausal, so I have to work really hard to retain like what I want to share. So I kind of like make a mental note. But the first thing is, and I love what you're saying, because the moment that you decide and you speak around like the purple hair, that's such a great example. But the moment that you decided, okay, you're going to go for it. So that's what happens. You first have on repeat. What's on repeat? Well, first of all, I follow a 6-step methodology that I teach my clients in terms of creation. But step one is somewhere in your life, somewhere in your echo chamber, there's some kind of dissatisfaction, discontentment. You're not happy. It's always been red. Now you charm for it, whatever. That's discontentment. You're not happy with it. There's dissatisfaction. You want something different. That's step one. And then step two is decide. And the moment you decide, you start opening to allowing. You decide, that's your responsibility. It's a practical thing. The allowing is now allow the universe to start playing its part. That's the second thing, which is the esoteric thing. But the moment that you decide, and that process is initiated in step two, is the moment you start becoming another version of yourself. The moment that you decide, and I'll say this to your vision, to your viewers, is the moment that you will start what I call your becoming process, your initiation, your evolution process, because the version of you with orange hair could not be the version of you with purple hair. You had to evolve into a liberated self of yourself. You had to drop judgment. You had to drop what society would think. You had to drop. So that's the moment that you make that decision, is the moment that you're going to transition into what is it that you need to release to become the woman that can walk confidently into that place and have the purple hair. And that's what's going to happen. And that's where people get scared, is that we call them the initiations. They're the things that are going to make you evolve, because you simply can't be the person who's at the bottom floor of the condo on ground level, and that is not the same person who can afford the condo level at the penthouse, for example. No, it's a different person, different income level, different way of thinking, different. And so if it would be punishing to take that person at the condo level, street level, and say, cool, yeah, but you don't have the finances, you're under stress and pressure, you haven't become internally the person that can comfortably hold the penthouse, knowing that you're leaning into your edges. So that's the one thing I just wanted to say in the second part of the 6-step process. The moment you decide, the moment you allow, is the moment you're going to start your evolution process, become the person who can hold. And that's a healthy thing, right? So you can be at a different level of mind. And then there we go. I can't remember the second piece of what I was going to say. But I
That's
lost.
okay
I
because
needed to write it down.
what you're demonstrating so beautifully is quantum jumping. That's
Yep.
jumping timelines. When you're willing to lean into your edge of discomfort, that doesn't mean, being willing to traumatize yourself. It just means being willing to lean into the edge of discomfort. Like, oh, there it is, right? Being willing to lean into that and make a change in that place. That's how you quantum jump. Because the person who I would have been if I always stayed with only red hair had a very different timeline than the person who jumped into a different timeline of now I walk with purple hair. And so you're going to have different experiences. You're going to have different emotions. You're going to have different people come into your life. And that's quantum jumping. And I think we can make it sound so scary and we can make it sound so hard. And that's one of the things I say to my clients is it doesn't have to be so difficult. Quantum jumping is literally just changing your trajectory, making a decision that changes it all.
So such a great point. Thanks so much. And Pascal, you're so accurate. That is one of the biggest paradigms that needs to be cracked at the moment, is that it has to be difficult. Quantum living, in its simplest form, is your thoughts and emotions. You can't see it. That's it. You can't see your thoughts. You can't see your emotions. That's quantum. You are already a quantum being. What you're wanting to do is harness this quantum power and then create a few practices. And what typically you and I will do with clients is we create some practices. I call them quantum games, so you can get inside the game and be in the quantum world just for a moment, whether it's an hour a day, half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, go for it, etc., to hone in on your quantum powerful abilities. And the rest of the time you're in your 3D reality. But all that you're doing is you're working with you're already embedded, born with quantum mechanisms of thought and emotion. And then you can put some structure around that to help you harness it. And what you bring up is so pertinent. So your audience might be saying, well, who's Sjeanne to be sitting here as an authority and talking around this shit anyway? Well, I have created in my life, I'm sitting on a new timeline. I'm sitting right now in Fort Collins in Colorado. I'm from South Africa originally, and I created the ability to be on a completely different continental timeline. In fact, I've created 2 visas. One was for Australia. I didn't end up executing that because the second part of my quantum jump, which is massive, like this is obviously a massive quantum jump, and it's taken me to a whole new level of now recreating my reality from a whole different set point. The value and the learnings in this experience is absolutely massive. So I'm not going to go into them now, but what I will just share is that living on another continent and having an experience on another continent that is fundamentally opposite to South Africa, you can't get 2 more opposite countries. The only thing that is common is we get to speak English, and that's about it. I had to learn at the age of 51 because I arrived last year with my wife. I had to relearn. I had to go take my driver's written test again at the age of 51, where I've had
What am
I, 33. I've been driving for 33 years. The written, I couldn't even do the driven test before I did the written. I got taken way back to the front. Then I had to do the driver's test again. I couldn't even get credit. I couldn't get $200 credit. I've owned a house. I worked in corporate investment banking. I've had a stellar credit record couldn't even get 200. So rebuilding a life from grassroots, and my soul wanted the experience of living on another continent. When your soul, in other words, your heart calls, your heart never lets you down. There is purpose as to why your soul wants something. So part of your dissatisfaction gap, and so look in your lives now where there is dissatisfaction, is because you are ready to release the defense mechanism, the strategy that is no longer serving you, so that you can have a different life experience. I can see why my soul wanted this experience. It's going to be enormous. I'm going to be writing books. I'm already doing the work that I'm doing, but I know that this is an enormous trajectory for me to be going through, and thoroughly enjoying the challenge. The other things that I've created, so part of living on a different continent and the visas that I created, was also, I'm married to a Californian, and so that was part of the universe orchestrating in 2019 when I put into the field that I wanted to live on a different continent, have a different life experience, the whole part of the orchestration. And it took so 2019 to 25 years for orchestration. I had to do a lot of becoming to be able to have the strength at the age of 51 to land and restart my whole life, from successful corporate individual advisor working with CEOs, senior leader, to choosing to start my whole life again. Every aspect of it, collapsing every identity that I knew from South Africa, individual, even relationships, friendship. I collapsed all of those identities. I'm rebuilding them now. But that's one example. So there was a marriage in that creation. There was obviously a visa I had to create. There was finances I had to create. The other thing, I mean, I've come from debt and into being able to move to another country. And to put it into perspective for your viewers, South African rand, for every $1, I have to pay 20 rand. That means that my wealth went from wherever it was. You can divide that by 20, but in rands terms, 7-figure sort of net worth. Yeah, it's different, obviously, but I'm building up to that 7-figure again. But to the extent that literally coming from debt to being able to take 4 months off when I arrived here. When I say off, just to kind of unwind. I spent a couple of months working, wrapping up my old job, and then like just recovering. It was a massive move, but being able to do that, and then being able to come into a situation where I can evolve my soul work, my soul business, both in a very practical way. And so I have a whole friendship tribe. I never used to have close friends. I have this amazing group of friends, another creation that I put into fruition. I look different. I'm a fundamentally different person since I started doing this work 20 years ago. I used to carry excess weight. I created a new metabolism, and I have hardly veered in 15 years of maybe 1 kilogram. You'll probably equate it to pounds. Even the language is different. I've got to like, what is that? So I have gone basically hardly ever exercise. I used to be a big exerciser, but I created a furnace inside in terms of my metabolism, and I stay pretty much in the same body weight without doing much, pretty athletic. So those are just some of the big things that I've created and what I know is possible. I've run what we call Comrades Marathon at 56 miles, 90
Oh my
kilometers,
gosh.
4 of them. And I will often use that as the analogy for creatorship, because you don't go from 0 to running 56 miles in one day in 9.5 hours. You create timelines. It's a great analogy because in that process, from let's say from a fitness level of being able to, let's say, run 3 miles quite comfortably, which is what I could do, to having the vision of what was possible. And it was a celebration of my life because I'd been in near-death experiences. You only up the next level of the next timeline. You might go from 3 miles, but your next timeline on your fitness level is 6 miles. But you got to lean into that. But that's the next timeline. And once you create that and you can do that comfortably, you're up leveling to the next timeline of 10 miles. And so running 56 miles is an accumulation of new timelines that you create. And then I'll just bring into the conversation, another one of my creations is my corporate career of 13 years. I had no business experience. I'd come from personal training. I'd been a professional squash player. I had no business experience. I'd never been in the corporate. I had no financial experiences. I had debt. And I created a role in the top financial institution on the African continent, where I got a 5-week opportunity for, eventually through this creation, for a contract to be in the bank for 5 weeks. I took it, and that turned into 13 years where I kind of climbed the corporate ladder. As I say, I ended up reporting to the CEOs, business unit heads. I was the advisor. I was a senior transformation leader, all sorts of things. You are capable of creating anything from nothing. No corporate experience, no business knowledge, no monetary knowledge, no financial knowledge, and fundamentally reshape my life. So, so I come into and I just share those experiences because they are all things that I've created.
Those are all things you've created with possibility mindset.
Correct.
Beautiful. I could talk to you forever and ever and ever. And I know that we've got to let you off the hook at some point. So you're so inspiring. You are such a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. Is there anything as we're closing out here today that you would like to offer listeners?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm so passionate about this work. I'm so passionate about it, bringing to fruition. And, a big part of my mission is around broadening the idea of your profitability blueprint and working into those spaces that I've already mentioned, and really bringing online, especially, people's power, and working with them in the context of knowing that and then landing it in very practical 3D realities. And so I'll be happy to offer your viewers. I'm only going to open up 6 spaces. I have a pretty full diary, but I'm more than happy to open up 6 spaces into what I call a Profitability Blueprint breakthrough session. And this is it's an amazing session. I get phenomenal feedback on it. I end up downloading information for the individual, ask a few questions, and I end up just receiving a whole lot of information, and we have a conversation. We look at your profitability blueprint. It could be in any one of those dimensions, power, purpose, money, as well as planetary. So it's really a personal session. We'll identify what it is in the session that you're wanting to work with, and we'll have a session. We'll just have a session. I will download what there is to be downloaded for you and transmit that to you, have the conversation, and look at a bit of a strategy and an action plan to take you forward, so that you make sure that you're walking out of the session with value. And so I'll be happy to offer 6 of those sessions over the next 2 weeks. And so from the time that this is released, your viewers will have 48 hours to book that session, and the link will be provided to you. Please come in. As I want to offer it to people who are ready to make a move, who are ready to do a change, who are committed to some kind of change in their life. And even though you might be scared, in fact, I value you coming in scared and afraid and courage, but that you're going to act on the information that I gave you. If you're not ready for that and it's not the timing for you, then rather leave those sessions open for someone who is ready to act and ready to act on the information. So that would be my only request. And of course, you can always follow me on my own social media channels, which we can post the links in.
Yeah. Beautiful. All your links are going to be in show notes. So it's going to, it's easy, click and go. So I've got the link for your blueprint in show notes. And yeah, if you're ready, that's such an important caveat there, because it's not going to be useful to you if you're not ready to implement, right? I almost hesitate to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're not ready and you come in and you receive this download of information and then you don't act on the information and take the next step to do the quantum leap, the quantum jumping, you might have a tendency to almost feel worse about yourself, right? And so if you're ready, like I'm ready to jump, let's go, book the session.
Book the session. And if you're not ready, I mean, simply just drop me a mail, or drop me a voice note, or, I'm very happy. Like, what do I need in order to get ready for my next? Because there's value in that. So, drop me a mail. I'm more than happy to shoot you a message to help you get ready and explore what's happening just a little bit in your life, and say, okay, well, I would be putting in these things in place, and this is what would be necessary for you to kind of feel ready to make the move, and very happy to support that way.
Sjeanne, I love and adore you so much. I'm a little jealous because you're in Fort Collins and my niece is actually at University of Colorado, Fort Collins. Yeah, so it would be nice to be able to run over and just give her a little hug. So energetically, I'm doing that through you. But thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. And I know that everyone is going to want to click that link and, follow you and get in touch with you, because you are such a powerful force.
Thank you. And yourself. I've loved meeting you. We've been very blessed to come across each other's paths, and I know that the work that you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. So it's just been amazing, and thank you for this opportunity.
I hope you gleaned some powerful insights from my conversation with Sjeanne. I know I did. You can tell this work is her passion. I myself always love the blend of spirituality and science, because the truth is that both sides are talking about the same thing. I could have these conversations all day, every day. I invite you to come back week after week to enjoy these conversations with me, as I'm always meeting new and inspired guests. As a reminder, if you'd like support on finding more presence and mindfulness in your life, let's schedule a conversation. Be sure to visit www.womenfindingclarity.com or just click on that link in show notes to access my calendar. Let's work together to bring more success into your everyday life. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. Good night. Thank you for being in our Women Finding Clarity community. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite listening platform, and share it with someone you know so they can find clarity from the conversation as well. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. See you next week.